Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my brother. Peace and love, freedom and decolonization to all African people, those at home, those abroad, and those in the future. I greet you all here in this platform, and it's my privilege to be here and just discuss with you one or two things that we have learned through the experience, imagination, intuition, even inspiration in the effort to improve our conditions and that of our people in order to create Africa that which is according to our vision and our aspiration. I am I have involved myself into authorship, into writing books. So currently, I have published three books, and I'm busy working on my fourth one. The first book was The Expropriation of the Mind Without Compensation. The second one was What Time Is It? The Question to the African Millennials. And the recent book was The Commerce of Trust, which I am intend to briefly discuss on this platform. I'm currently working on a book that I consider to be a guide for community leaders in Africa because I think politicians have deceived us. We are at a stage where we need community organizations, and therefore we need revolutionary thinkers who are going to organize our communities so that we can transform our lives instead of waiting for the Caesar to do for us what we are supposed to do for ourselves. Well, apart from being a book writer or author, I am an engineer by profession. I've studied mechanical engineering, and I've also studied community development as well as the development studies. So basically, that's what I can say about myself. I'm born in the colonial enclosure that we call the Democratic Republic of Congo. And also in a social affairs, I'm a member of the African Continental Unity Party and also a member of the Free Minded Pan African Academy. So that's pretty much what I can say about myself. So I'm happy to talk about my recent book, The Commerce of Trust. The idea that uh, that was behind writing this book, it's the need that all of us as African people have, which is the need for power. I believe that we are suffering today in the world because of our state of powerlessness. In other words, I want to say that we have been enslaved, we have been colonized, and today we are neo colonized simply because we don't have the power to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves, and to project our vision in the world and pursue any goal that we have and fulfill it. That has been our biggest problem. And therefore, African people individually or collectively, we are searching for power. We are in need of power. Actually, everyone in the world needs power. That's the reason why we are waking up in the morning, going to work, going to study, invest into businesses simply because we want to get money. And money gives us power of choice or power of options because with money you have options, and without money in the current world, unfortunately, we don't have much options. So, as I was thinking about the topic of power, how can we go about getting power? So, I'm going to read a paragraph of my of the introduction of the book, so that you can understand where I came from with this topic and where uh, the rest of chapters will lead. So, the point I mean the title of the introduction is The Essence of Power and Freedom in the Pursuit of Collective Liberation. So it's quite long, but I've just read a few things. So freedom is the essence of life. It serves both as the means and the end of the end itself. So it means the freedom is the means that takes us to the end, or to the goal that we want to achieve, want to do to get more freedom, to be able to decide today where do you want to spend your night, your evening, what school do you want to send your children, where do you want to do your vacation. That's actually freedom. You are free to do that when you have capability and you are not limited. So that freedom is actually what is the means. We need some freedoms to be able to make some decisions. And in the process, we need more freedom which we want to achieve, in whatever that we want to do. I hope you understand that. So true freedom or liberation is a result of growth and maturity. So here what I'm trying to say is that people are not born free. People mature to becoming free people. So freedom is actually the result of freedom. Freedom is actually the result of maturity and growth. Even though the Universal Declaration of Human Rights declares that all of us as human beings, we are born free and equal. But when you think about it, you see that freedom is only acquired through a certain work, a level of maturity. Because babies, for example, of course, we can believe that babies are human beings, but they don't have the power to defend their freedom or to claim their freedoms. It's us as adults, people who have to protect and defend the freedom of babies and their rights. And if we decide suddenly to not recognize the freedom or the rights of babies, it's over for them. So in that sense, what I'm trying to say that as long as a human being has not matured enough, has not grown to mature himself, to build his capabilities so that he can be able to recognize his rights, his freedom, and defend them, that human being, he lives like a child, and it's other people, who are supposed to make decisions over his life. So unfortunately, that's a reality, and I'm continuing to read. So I'm jumping, just to make sure that I go to the point and I close and we go to the discussion. So if freedom is about making choices, then it is equally about power, because the ability to choose implies having the power and the capacity to make decisions that best suit one's life mission. That we can restate the initial premise. Power is the essence of life itself. So a life deprived of power is life without freedom, unable to know or to choose what is best for its development and fulfillment. Those who possess power can choose and live according to their choices, whether it is their lifestyle, a decent home, a quality education for their children. For example, I spoke about the babies. While babies are human beings, they don't have the right of, with the right to freedom, those rights are not guaranteed by the babies themselves, as they lack the ability to recognize and exercise them. I'm going to jump. So the process that leads to freedom or power, as I've explained, freedom means power because you are free. That means you have the power to decide a kind of life you want to live. So the process that leads to freedom involves education and work, resulting in a capacity building. We educate ourselves, we work hard. I think I've spoken a bit about this. So that's baby are expected to mature, not just physically, but more importantly, in knowledge and wisdom that can be applied to building their internal capacity or power of choice. As long as infants remain immature in thoughts and actions, they cannot know or defend their rights. More importantly, they cannot enjoy freedom, which is the ability to choose what is best for them in life and to live by those choices. So, um, going towards the end, earlier we said that freedom gives you the power to choose options, but who sets up those options for us? So now, this is what I want us to understand at this point. When a person is free, he has some power to choose the best options for their lives in terms of education for their children, where they want to study, where they want to live, and all those kind of things. That is, when you think about it, is a limited power because they are the options that have been set up for you by other people. So the question that I ask here is, but who set up those options for us? And this is where it becomes important. And this section leads to the concept of total liberation. You see, we enjoy freedoms in different levels as individuals. The freedom that you can ever enjoy, no matter how much money you have, is the freedom to choose options, the best options for you. But remember, those options are always set up by some people. Those options, they're not coming to you naturally. Whether you talk about the best job and the good employment, that employment, the profile has been designed by certain people, the salary that you get, the type of business. I mean, all the options that we can choose from are the product of other people's design, sorry. However, the important part here that I want to mention is that we shouldn't limit ourselves of only be able to choose the best options, but we should ascend to that level of power that allows us to define actually the options. So, in other words, freedom is the ability to choose options, but liberation is the ability to define those options. And liberation is not something that an individual can enjoy. It's only something that a collective can enjoy. When a group of people come together, right, they are able to build institutions, and those institutions come with policies, guidelines, rules, and regulations that individuals must abide to. The most popular community in the world today is a Jewish community. What makes them, sometimes you don't even know individual Jewish people, but you only know that a Jewish community exists. And for you to understand that they exist and they have power, you just have to provoke them, like Kanye West. What happened to him. His billion his billions were stripped from him overnight. This is the power of a community. So this book emphasizes the point about power, which means for us as African people, we should not content ourselves with individual power of choosing options that have been presented to us in the world by those who control the system, but we should be able to go towards the total power or liberation, which is a state that allows us to define our own paradigm, to define the options that are best for us, to define what is the employment for Africans. What is the employment? What should be the employment conditions, for example, for African people in African society? Why should be the wording? All these things in a society that we are faced, we are able to define those options if we are able to come together and create institutions. Because one thing important about institutions is that they dictate behavior of individuals. When you go to your workplace, you know already that there's a certain language that you have to use when you are in your workplace. There's a certain attire that you need to present yourself with when you are at your workplace. So already that is a behavior being actually conditioned on you because you are part of an institution. So the thing is the same here. We want African child to behave in a certain way, but we don't present them. We don't build institutions for them through which the behavior that we expect from them can be enforced. We want them to be people who are Ubuntu oriented. We want them to be people who love Africa, want them to be this and that, but we let them to be fashioned within the Western institutions, which actually cultivates them to be individualistic rather than to be really oriented towards their people and to be loyal to their people. So that has been our challenge as African people. So there are two things that I emphasize in this book. The first one is we need collective power, but that has been a challenge. This is the second point. The challenge is that we've been unable to build the collective power because of lack of trust, right? And this way the topic of the book comes into from the second chapter, where then I discuss trust in different dimensions. Trust towards oneself, trust towards other people, trust towards money, trust, in different dimensions. I've discussed trust. The aim is to help us to understand how powerful and important trust is, because when you look at it, trust is everything in the world. Actually, trust is the currency of the world. When you think about it, you are in the UK or you are, I don't know, in Germany, you have a currency that you are using there. I am currently in South Africa. There's a currency that I'm using here. And this currency exists truly because people in this particular place believe and trust that this is a currency, right? If I live with the South African rands and I go to Kenya, And even though people may know that this is South African grains, I cannot buy with it because they don't trust it as a society. So everything that we know in the world, starting from money, society, everything work because people are able to trust that particular thing. So I have developed a historical analysis of how the human society developed from small community, from family to the larger society, to explain how trust was able to interact with the people, or to be the tool that brought people together, that helped people to develop institutions and to grow. And when you see the world that in which we're living today, it has changed, profoundly. In the previous world, it was a world of direct interaction between human beings. It means you and I, we build, direct trust. We establish a relationship between you and I, where trust was kind of was, both ways. I trust you, you trust me. If we have to do some deals, or to have some agreements, I give you my word, you trust it. You give me your word, and I trust it. That's how, actually agreements were done in the past. So relationship was kind of transactional between the people. And today, if you study the society in which we are living today, you will realize that we are now not living in a kind of a transactional trust. We are living in a society where relationship is kind of a triangular, where you and I, we are at the base of the triangular, and the tip of the triangle at the top, there's an object or an entity in which we put our trust. It can be a video tape that we record to make sure that no one get cheated. It can be the lawyers, can be the government. So we don't trust each other really, as we used to be in the past. The trust is invested in something else. Then, that's the society in which we are today. I've explained all these concepts within the book, but the aim was just to rebrand the trust and to show that whatever that Africa must become tomorrow will be based on how we are capable, or we are able to trust ourselves firstly, which with our trust we are going to be in jeopardy. So towards the end of the book, I've discussed an interesting chapter which is called "The Enemy of African is an African Himself." I want to end with this because I feel like it's important. The reason why I've discussed it is because mostly we say that the enemy of African is African himself. And I've discussed it to say that this should be not our motto, because I've never heard Jewish people saying that the enemy of the Jews is a Jew himself. Enemy of the Jew is a Jew himself, for example. While Jews themselves were involved in a Holocaust, there were Jews involved there, but that has never said they've never put Jewish people in the position of saying that, you know what, the enemy of the Jew is a Jew himself. During the Cold War, for example, you have Americans who were spying for Russians, or vice versa. It doesn't make Americans to say that, the enemy of the Americans is the American himself. So we always want to portray the misbehavior of certain people among us to say that, okay, this is the characteristic of an African person, that we issues that I've touched on the in the book, but it's like a 300 pages book. It touches on different things of, it touches on different things, and I have to be able to discover it for yourself. But I think I will end here to allow the discussion with everyone, maybe to get some interactive questions that allow the discussion to be rich. Thank you so much. If you want to see how the book looks like, I want to show you right now. This is how it looks like. Um, this the actually the cover of the book. Got like 5 copies here that I'm left with. like to keep some copies for myself. But if you go on internet, Smashwords, and other uh, online platforms, you'll be able to find the book. And also, if you are in South Africa, you can find it in some of the bookstore around here. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time, and looking forward to the interaction. No, no, I don't think that freedom means different things to any human being because mm, mm, I don't understand the question. Like for themselves or from what from black people? No, from themselves. Uh-huh. Well, you can say that in a sense that for white people, when it comes to freedom, for them it means two things: power and control. And that is one thing that they don't allow African people to have power and control. In most cases, they don't allow competition. So, for them, in the context of your question, freedom for African people can mean creating an environment where an African person choose the options that have been already preset or predefined by the white monopoly. And if you are comfortable in that condition where you are allowed to choose what they have already designed for you, it means you don't have control. You can have the power to choose, but not the control of the system to define the options that you are choosing. Then that's in that sense I can say yes, they have two contexts of freedom for them and for other people. For them is power and control. For black people it can be how can I put it, compliance. um, you can put it as a compliance and and comfort, so to say. They can put you in a very comfortable conditions as long as you are not actually challenging their power and control.
I am here. I am here. Okay. Brother, I am proud of you that you went and did the research and put the work together, and you have a book out there so that we can read it and that we can help to know ourselves and to have our roots, because with embracing our roots, that is how we're going to get strong, and that is will be arming us with knowledge so that we can stand up against the oppressors and that we can move forward in this time, because we really need, we really need all of this. And I myself have a few books that I read, African spirituality and the difference between religion and being spiritual. So I have that book. I have The Goddess Black Woman. I have Black Consciousness, and I have Stolen Egyptian Mythology by Egypt. So, and I'd like to also, we can get in touch. I'd like to also know how I can get hold of your literature as well, so that I can learn more of the things that I need to know.
All right, Queen. I think if I heard you, sorry, the chair. Can I proceed or? All right, thank you. Now, Queen, thank you very much. I think if I've heard you correctly, you briefly said that you would like to know how you can get in touch with my literature so that you can get to enrich yourself. That's
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's no problem. We you can send me a message. Can DM me and I'll reply with a link to where you can get some of the books that I've written. That's okay.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
But for who?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Okay. Thank you, my brother. He's well informed on issues pertaining to the African unity and what needs to be done and how we can orchestrate a program that will target the necessary people to fight in the interest of the African liberation. And you touch a very important point, which talks about the perception of freedom. And that is very, very, very much important. I wish he could have elaborated a lot on that because oftentimes when you think that you are free, you are actually structured around certain rules and regulation that keeps you subdued psychologically, to which you adapt to a basic principle that was governed, or that was designed with an intent and purpose. And that's why in Africa you find a lot of labor rather than industrialized people with industrial mindset, people with innovative mindset, investors. And so what you find in our society, which is evident today, is that people are coming in from foreign countries to open shops, open businesses, open companies, while we are on the continent sitting waiting for these people to come to get jobs. And this trajectory needs to change. So I do hope, my brother, in your explanation to the nation through your books or through your literatures, you highlight these deficiencies in our society to which people understand what needs to be done, because all your books is a form of information. And these things are credited to help us to understand what we are up against and what measures we can take to chart a course as a people to better our condition in our society. And as an engineer, I know you're a mechanical engineer. I'm also an electronic engineer too, but I haven't started writing any book. I'm now studying anthropology and I'm doing my bachelor's in clinical psychology because of your interest. Same thing with me. I see something wrong in our society, and based on those observational analysis, I think that psychological awareness need to be a front to change our condition, because oftentimes people don't understand that from baby to the age of 25, your prefrontal cortex is growing and it becomes fully developed at age 25. That's why they take you as child soldier from 18 to go. Sorry about that. Someone just called and cut me off there just now. Sorry about that. Yes, your brain is still developing, and in that process of development, you I didn't hear you. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So my brother. Yeah, yes, I'm now back. What happens? But because it's off, it's always some people call in and interrupt me. I'm using the phone. I'm not the laptop, so they interrupt me. So my brother. Yeah. My question. Yeah. Yeah. My question is, what can we do to bring more information to the people so that we can organize effectively to get Africans working together in a group to better our condition.
That's great one. And I think what we are doing right here is actually bringing information to the people. So, in a nutshell, I would say that we have to make use of all the means available to share information, because when you see how much fund the United States of America and other Western countries are investing in propaganda, designed to indoctrinate our people to submission, to obedience and acquiescence, and to make them just a passive obedient of whatever that is brought to them. That money is huge, is very huge, and we don't have a chance to relax. We don't have time to relax, or all that we have is to intensify all the available means, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, whatever opportunity that you have to share information, just have to do it. Just have to do it, especially at our generation. It's very important that people are awakened and are really active. And other way as well is to organize, as you said yourself in your question. Organization is a it's a platform through which information can be effectively shared and practiced as well, because it's one thing to know something theoretically, but it's another thing to be able to practice what you know, and that is the power of organization. So we learn and we organize in terms of our communities. Whenever we find ourselves, we have to identify our people and organize and share information and trigger some actions. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I don't have a question. I just want to compliment the great work you have done. Okay, you brought a lot of light to us. Okay, your own power in having being able to be in control of your own destination. I congratulate you, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. Okay, so I just want to say that. Thank you so much.
So much, King.
Greetings, beloved. And yes, to back up what Verna just said, this amazing, wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this work on behalf of our people. Um, you may have answered it already, but when you were writing this book, did you also have the diasporans in mind?
Yes, so I am a revolutionary Pan African or Pan Africanist. That's how I identify myself. There's no solution to Africa's problem that does not involve the diaspora. It has been like that, and it is like that. It shall even be like that for, I don't know, other decades to come, because of a lot of things. So Pan Africanism itself, was born in the diaspora, and looking at the economic balance, I think diaspora can be a major investment partner in Africa instead of the what you call uh, the World Bank and the IMF and all those kind of colonial institutions. So, as I said, I mean, no solution really can be effective if it doesn't involve the diaspora. So, yes, the book is inclusive of diaspora. Everything that I've ever written actually is inclusive of the diasporan.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, my question is for the trust. The trust is, for me, it's very important, and I like the way you describe it. And do you think that is a hope? Because for me, actually, I see you put also the Jewish into the topic, like the money. I what I research is, for example, the Jewish community have his money, for example, in 6 days. As African community, we keep our money into 3 hours into our own community. So if we trust ourselves and we buy each other, you think there is hope for the next generation and even for the past generation, like the boomer generation, or we have it here. Yeah, you think there is hope with with this?
Yes, Queen. I mean, hope it's the last thing that that remains when everything else leaves, when love and I don't know anything else can go out, but hope shall remains because when when the hope dies, so is life itself. The very simple reason why we're still alive or our ancestors were able to um, survive through harsh conditions of slavery is because they hoped that one day they'll be able to overcome the tyranny that was imposed upon them and live definitely as a free people again. So yeah, hope is there regardless of what we do or we don't do, but because we are alive, the hope is there. But once we begin to implement trust between ourselves, that hope begins then to transform itself not just into hope, but into plans and projects and actually a clear vision or clear path that we can go through in order to totally liberate ourselves. So, yes, hope is there, of course, for the future generation, as you've stated. Thank you.
Good morning, Brother Kabala. Thank you for your brilliant contribution to the live this morning. Very informative, very knowledgeable. Thank you so much. I look forward to reading your books. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes. I have a few questions. One, what methods do you identify that have helped our people achieve power and autonomy once again? One question. Second question is, how do you feel about what's happening in your home country? And if you could just expand about your feelings about that, what's happening, I would appreciate that. And the third question is, would you be willing to be a member of a task force to go back to Congo to change things actually on the ground? Would you be able to formulate a task force in order to do that, to go back and to actually start the wind of change? Um, I know Abraham Torres is quite
Can I be heard?
yes, yes, you can hear me. Yes. So
For
would you
some
be
reason, I can't even hear anything again. If I can be
Yes,
heard,
she is a
that's
bit
okay. I'm just
low.
trying to
She is a
can
bit
you hear
low.
me?
Trust me, your mic
adjust.
is a bit
Oh
low.
my goodness, what the hell is this? Sorry, I'm going to log out and request to come in again because I can't hear anything. It it happens sometimes because my phone is connected to the laptop. If laptop wakes up, the voice get transferred to the. Yes, I can hear you perfectly clear. I'm sure you can hear me too. Yeah, and I can use it, no problem. All right. Sorry for that. My phone is connected to the laptop, so if the laptop wakes up, it takes over the sound. I couldn't hear anything anymore. So the queen was asking questions. She has three questions. If she may just quickly repeat them again. I think the first one is um, the
First
first
one.
question actually. I know the two last. Just the first one. Sorry.
Yes. What methods do you identify that we can use to take our people forward to
Yeah.
achieve power and autonomy,
Uh-huh.
to take back everything that we have lost? And the second question is about your feelings about your home country, as a native and a son of the soil. What do you feel internally? What's going on with you in terms of what's happening with your country? And the third question is, would you be willing to be a member of a task force that would have actual boots on the ground to start to change things in the Congo? And I know that's a loaded question that would be quite dangerous, but would you be willing to be a member of a task force to start to institute change in the Congo?
Beautiful. So, on the first question, the best method that we can use to gain back our power is the building of institutions. If you look in the world today, you can almost agree with me that the world is governed by institutions. You talking about the World Bank, the UN, IMF, all these are the institutions that people built, and they are the ones that actually control the world, dictates the price of our goods. As you know, in Congo we have a lot of mineral resources, but the value of those resources is not something that the Congolese people fix. It's something that is being fixed by the World Trade
Absolutely.
Organization, which
Absolutely.
is an institution that is not owned or controlled by African people. So the only way that we can recuperate the power is to build our own institutions. Because through institution, as I said, the first thing is that we are able to compel the behavior of our people. We have people who are not loyal to Africa because their lives depend on other people's institutions. So we can preach from morning to evening about people should love Africa, African leaders should behave this and in this way or in that way. But if you are not able to have certain institutions that compel those behaviors, we are not successful. So the first thing that we need to begin doing is institution. When we wake up in the morning in Africa, whether you are in Kampala, you are in South Africa, in Congo, you wake up in the morning, where do you go to buy your bread and egg for your breakfast? And who controls that particular institution? So look, I think there's a guy, Dr. Uma Johnson, who explained this in a simple way. He said that every community that aims for freedom must be able to control the four institutions. And for me, I've added five institutions. For him, he speaks about the supermarket where you can trade your goods, education where you teach your people, your children, you train them to take responsibility over the nation, the hospital where you treat your people when they are sick, the banks where you invest in your people, right? And the fifth one that I've added, which I think should be the first one, is the land where you produce the food that you are supposed to consume. So when you go in almost every community in Africa, I was in Congo 2 weeks ago, I was in Uganda, Kampala, a week ago, you can almost see the same thing in Zambia, the same thing, especially actually when you are flying over these countries, you will see that the land is vacant. In Congo, we have 80 million hectares of arable land. It's only 6% of that land that has been utilized. The remaining is nothing, not used. But when you go to Congo, you see that almost everything that is eatable, consumable, is being imported. We import rice, we import all these things, and now Chinese are even making plastic rice for us. We don't know where we are going to end with this. So we have to come back to the principle as outlined by Thomas Sankara when he said that we should be able to put ourselves in a position where we consume what we produce and we produce what we consume. So, and that can only be done through institutions. It's never going to be done by protest on the road. It's never going to be done with the TikToks and stuff. We should be able to sit down as we are in this forum, target one thing, and begin to organize around that thing and build institution and begin to produce. The world today is about production. If you don't produce, then you have to depend on those who produce. Unfortunately, that's the reality of African worldwide. So with the little means that we have, we need to begin building institutions. And sometimes we think we don't have money, but when you look at it, we live every day. You go even in communities where poverty is really rampant in Africa, you see that people are living day to day. So you have to ask yourself, in the world governed by money, what keeps them living? Simply, there's something that keeps them living, and we can utilize whatever that we have to build institutions. We don't have to wait the day that we are all millionaires. If I have 100 euros or dollars, I can use it in a day. It's going to finish just $100, nothing. If you have it, it's something. But if 1,000 of us come together with 100 euros, is already a huge capital for investment, and we can target a place somewhere and begin, building institutions. I mean, everybody who have done it did it like that. In Spain, there's a community called the Mondragon. They did it just like that. In South Africa, there's something that is called Stockville. It's the same principle. So this, what I can say about how we can gain the power, the day that we are able to build our own institutions that will govern our trades, our commerce, our lives, and everything, that's when we have the power, because power in the world today is projected through institutions. Amazon is an institution. Who owns it? Tesla is an institution. Who owns it? So what is our institutions of production of food, of banks, of hospital, of healthcare, of in all 9 areas of people's activities? You have none. I'll put that aside. Now, the second question about what I feel about the DRC, what is happening in the DRC, well, it's unfortunate. There's one of my favorite historian, Dr. John Henry Clark, said it that Africa is always and is the basket of the world, because Africa has things that many want and they cannot do without, and they've never wanted to pay for. And therefore, they will always find an excuse to invade Africa. And that is the reality that we have in DRC, but not just in DRC. You must look what is happening in Sudan. It's the same thing. It was one country. In 2011, the Western colonialist powers divided it into 2 countries, promising people that you will live happily when you become 2 countries. And the aim was just to get hold of the oil of Sudan. And today you have South Sudan, you have and Sudan, and you have war in both countries. Look what is happening in Burkina Faso. The terrorist activities there. Look what is happening in Mali. Everywhere on the continent, you have this kind of reality. And the aim is this. And this was actually explained by American thinkers during the post-Second World War period. There was something that they called the threat of a good example. And what is the meaning of that? It's like if a single country, especially a poor country in Africa, a country that has no resources in Africa, can be left alone and begins to strategize and to develop and to actually to stabilize itself and begin to prosper, is a very, very bad example for countries that have more resources, because they will just look and say, okay, if a country, small country like Burkina Faso or Gabon has been able to develop and it has no much resources like we have in Congo, Nigeria and stuff like that, that means we have a better chance to succeed. And this has been done consistently throughout throughout the history to try to undermine all African countries so that the example, the threat of good example can be implemented. And the way they do it is they struck some kind of relationships with your army responsible, the generals in the army, because that is where actually coup d'etat always come from, right? And if they don't do that, they create rebellion for you so that you spend a good portion of your budget to fight, to protect, and you cannot really allocate enough budget to develop healthcare, to develop industries, to develop education that your people need, and all those kind of stuff. So these are strategies that have been using, on the continent, and it's applicable to DRC as well. There's no difference as to what is happening in Congo right now. So that's unfortunately, that's the reality. When you look behind what is happening in Congo, the weapons that are being used, are weapons manufactured somewhere, imported and brought to the people so that they can go and fight. I was in Kampala recently, and I interact with a lot of Congolese people who are originally from the eastern part where the war is actually taking place. And what I've discovered is that I met Congolese, and I met some people, Arabic people, Turkish, Azerbaijan, those kind of stuff. So what I found is that those people, they manufacture weapons in Arabic countries like Qatar, in those countries, and they come through Kenya. They store those weapons in Kenya, and they go to Uganda. They interact with the Congolese, because when you are in Uganda, it's like you are in another province of Congo. Even Rwanda, there are a lot of Congolese there, and they find connections there with the rebels or people who are prone to be rebels in the east part of Congo, and they propose them weapons in exchange for gold. And I witnessed it because I was approached by some Turkish people in Uganda, and I spoke to the Congolese to confirm it, and they were ready for that kind of transaction. So what I'm saying is, like, it's very, very complex situation that involves the Congolese people themselves, especially the leaders, because what is happening right now in the Congo at this particular moment, the chief of that rebellion is called Nanga. He had his mining concessions that was taken away from him by the current president of Congo, and then because this same guy who is a rebel was the chief of the electoral commission in DRC. Is the one who proclaimed the current president, the leader, as president, after the elections. And then when this one became president, he took his mining concessions. Then the guy had to go in the bush for vengeance. So it's kind of personal problems, but unfortunately affecting the population. And this is a level at which Africans are still interacting, unfortunately. And you have it's a mixture of a lot of things. It can be explained, as I've just said. It also can be explained in geopolitical context, where superpowers want to have their hands on the Congo minerals and then trigger wars, sponsor wars, so that the Congolese government is not going to be able to secure the land or the country. At the same time, you have the leadership that is corrupt and involved. Some of them have dividends in the war that is taking place in the country. So that is what I can say. It's just a mixture. For me, what is the solution? Start by just removing all the leadership, right? I don't want to use the bad word because we are on a TikTok, but removing, and I guess you understand what I'm talking about, and removing them publicly, because we are at a time of revolution, and this revolution has to be decisive, because if we miss the opportunity now, there's no better future for our children. So removing them and removing the context of this is Rwanda, this is Uganda, this is Congo, because all of these are the creation of neocolonialism, and recreate Africa in the way that we want as a Pan-Africanist. I guess that is a better solution for me, in my mindset as a Pan-Africanist. And the last question of should I go? And if you mean by me going there, take the weapons and go and fight for Congo, my answer is no. Why? Because a Congo, as it is right now, is a colonial project. It was not the invention of my ancestors. Lumumba didn't create Congo, just as Nkrumah didn't create Ghana. All these countries were created at the Berlin Conference and imposed on us without our will or our concern. And they were created for exploitation of African people and their resources. So for me, I'm always thinking, because I'm a revolutionary and I'm always thinking as a revolutionary, I feel like taking a gun to go and fight. I'm going to fight to defend a colonial project, because as we're speaking right now, if you go to Congo, to an area called Kasumbalesa, which is the border between Congo and Zambia, mineral are being taken out of the Congo every day. I counted one time, over 1,000 trucks taking the minerals out of the country. And the question is, in exchange for what? What is the value that the Congolese people gain in exchange of these resources, right? Nothing. You find communities devastated, impoverished, and even the environment itself on which that the resources have been taken is now polluted so that people cannot even go back to farmings to sustain their lives. So we gain nothing out of these resources. So I don't see the reason why I can go and fight for such a colonial project which was not invented by my people. However, what I'm prepared to do and what I've already started doing, as we're speaking right now, is to organize our people in the context of community so that we can first and foremost stop depending on the government, but begin to depend on us in terms of the institutions that we can build in our communities, right? And that is something that I'm doing, and that is something that I shall do for the rest of my life, to organize our people, to mobilize our people and organize them for the building of institutions that we have to depend on, the institutions that can protect us, defend us, and eventually prepare a better future for our children. And when the communities are properly organized and ready, then the revolution just matter of days. And when that revolution happens, we will be able to have Africa that we have dreamed of, Africa that we want. So I hope with this, I have brought maybe clarity on your questions, but if not, I'm happy to engage maybe one-on-one out of this forum if you want. Because of time, I don't know, but I'm always okay with anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother, for that. Thank you so much.
Welcome. The chair, the mic's over to you, unless if there's another question.
Hey, I don't have question. I just right now busy at work. What I want to say, I want to congratulate my brother Kabala. He's my beloved brother. I love him since the time he started this, and I know him since he started this revolution. And I always with him, guide him, like, comment everywhere. I got his book. My husband has read it. I read it. Now we pass it to some of our family. So please, my beloved people, follow him, get his book, reading. If you don't understand anything in the book, believe me, he can get one-to-one with you to correct everything what he put in the book if you don't understand it. And I just want to say, brother, you're doing well. I'm always there with you, not physically, but you can see it yourself. In any social media, I see you, are always there, giving you like, comment. So he's my baby brother. Please, my people, support my baby brother. And brother Afrobeat, you didn't tell me you bring in my baby brother Afrobeat. I didn't hear. I was at work, brother. I'm always at work. So very happy to bring him. And all the best, my beloved brother. Honestly, positive and Christian energy to you. Make the ancestors guide you, for all of us. The 54 countries in the continent. Nice to meet you and nice to see you again, brother. Okay? Positive and
Peace and
Christian
love,
energy.
Queen. Peace and love, Queen.
Yeah. Please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Peace, peace, peace. Can everyone hear me? We've been having difficulties. All right. Okay. Thank you. Peace, Kabbalah. Thank you for your time and effort and putting in work. Let me get down to the point. You said trust, right? And I just wanted to say I'm glad that you brought that out because trust is very important. Trust is someone say that they're in a burning building, they see a fireman or they see somebody else, who are they going to trust? Trust is based on you being able to make a decision based on the information that you're given, right? So now the reason why I'm going down that path is this: how important do you say that it is for there to be a code of conduct? Now, within this code of conduct, what I'm meaning is that you have benefits of sticking to this code, plus there are also penalties within this code of conduct for black people globally, meaning a code of conduct that we should operate under, right? And then the other part of that is, how important do you feel that spreading this code of conduct, as well as generating our messages within our own controlled media spaces, is for us? Hopefully, I was clear. I was seeing a little digital
Um,
mix up as well.
okay, I'm not too sure, but let me make sure that I heard you correctly. What you mean is like, what if we replace trust with a code of conduct? Is that what you are implying?
No, basically what I was saying is this code of conduct will build trust within people, because people will benefit from this code of conduct, or people will be punished by staying by not living up
Yeah.
to the code of conduct. Like, for instance, like, as if you have a politician or whatever, they're not living up to the code of conduct, so then they should be
Hmm.
punished. But if they live up to the code of conduct, then they should, of course, reap the benefits. And what I was the reason why I was saying that is, how important do you think that it would be to spread that message, as well as galvanize the people through our own media outlets, basically controlling our own narrative through media?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, no, no, I think I get your question correctly. And what I will say to that is this: code of conduct. I mean, a large part of trust comes with emotion. So, in other words, I can say that trust involves a lot of emotion for you to trust somebody. The same emotion that you may have to be with the people or with the person, or to love them, it's the same emotion that you, not exactly, but a part of that emotion get involved when you have to trust people, right? However, code of conduct is like a law. And when it comes to emotions, you cannot law as, I mean, a feeling or emotion cannot be legalized. It's something that is done voluntarily, something that is being cultivated, yes, and given voluntarily, not necessarily being something that people feel compelled by law that they have to do this. And I can give you one simple example. In the uh, in the civil rights movement in the United States, after all those things, Martin Luther King and stuff, actually before even that, slavery was abolished in America by law, or we can say by code of conduct. But the feelings of hatred that people had, that feeling of antagonism that people had, didn't stop there, because the law, or by law, people had to live together. People had to stop discriminating against each other by law, right? Even though by law that changed, but behavior of the people, even today, you're still gonna find people who hate each other in America. White people who don't like black people, and black people who still feel, rightfully stigmatized because of the oppression and stuff, and they have certain feelings for white people. Even here in South Africa, it's the same thing. Apartheid ended, presumably in 1994, right? But up until today, you go to into workplaces for a white person to pay a black person the same amount that he pays to another white person. I mean, you may find a few companies who do that, but most people, there's this discrimination, economic discrimination, that is still existing. So this is just to show you that we can create a code of conduct, but we don't have a guarantee that that code of conduct will facilitate the creation of trust that we want to establish in Africa. So I think trust has to be built through relationships, conversation, trying to trust each other, trying especially to do things together. That's how mostly trust is built. But I've also emphasized in the book that trust is different from faith, because at some point people begin to confuse trust and faith. you have faith when you don't have knowledge, but trust, you must have at least an amount of knowledge of what you are trusting. You want to trust, I mean, I can trust myself that I'm an engineer because I have the knowledge. I've studied that. But I cannot trust myself that I can pilot a plane because I've never I've never been trained for that. So, trust is always working with the knowledge, right? So it means, how do we build it? Relationship, trying to, do things together. That's how trust come into play, right? But it's always an investment, a kind of risk. In any business, you invest something first. Same as trust. You trust first, give a certain amount of trust, not all of it. When the knowledge comes, when the proof comes, the evidence comes, and then you invest more trust. That's how more trust gets to be established. But code of conduct is very important. We must have it, especially when we get to the point where we build institutions. We must have code of conduct. How are we
You frozen.
supposed to behave, towards one another? But I don't think that code of conduct will. I don't think code of conduct is what we need to create trust. Trust, we need relationship, but code of conduct is very important to guide those relationships to be smooth and to be, frictionless.
Okay. All right. So I came, man, I hate that I missed most of you because I was trying to stay woke. My time is different from you all's. But I wanted to ask you, do you know anything about the things that's happening with Burkina Faso and the West of the new general that they're about to put in place, and that General Langley has already stated the same thing they did with Gaddafi. They're already putting in progress about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria are terrorists.
Yes. So let me say this to that. You see, at the end of the Second World War, the precisely around 1945 upwards, the United States was the unique country in the world which was not, of course, damaged by the war, and consequently, it was the richest country in the world. At that time, the American controlled about 50% of the world's wealth, while they only represented about 5% of 6 or 5% of the world's population. So what they did was they began to think already in anticipation about how they can preserve their status, their power, and their wealth. And this there's a document called the National Security Memorandum 68, and there's a name that you can Google, George Kennan. These are the key people, one of the key people who were involved in this policy designing. So they had to design policies to make sure that America stays in power. And what they did was to divide, among other things, was to divide the world in different blocks. And Africa, unfortunately, was among what they called the Grand Area. So the purpose or the mission which they assigned to the Grand Area, because remember, each block which they created had a specific mission linked to the interest of the United States of America. So when it comes to Africa, the mission that Africa was given as part of the Grand Area was to be one, the reservoir of the natural resources that America and allies wanted to keep on developing. And two, the markets, available markets for the Western products to be consumed. So if you study everything from the independence of Africa, actually from the end of the Second World War up to now, it has been all about these two missions. Africa and its resources must be at the disposal of Western countries to take for free, sometimes by creating chaos in Africa. And Africa must be a market where they can come and dump their stuff for African consumption. In other words, we are not allowed to produce locally, to transform the resources locally and produce locally. We have to give them the resources, they have to produce, and we have to consume. And every leader in Africa who dared to go against this policy was either overthrown, was either assassinated, or was either impeached. I don't know, a rebellion broke out to make sure that they cannot understand what is happening. So that is exactly what Burkina Faso is going through right now. Burkina Faso, with other 13 countries in Africa that are part of the Francophone African countries, were colonized by the French. And for a long time, they were being exploited. France had a kind of exclusive access to the resources of those countries in a way that they made those countries at the independence period to sign some deals that prevented them, even if they discover new minerals that French people didn't know during the colonialism, if they discovered new minerals, they cannot take those minerals to other investors or to other powers to have a partnership with them to exploit those minerals. They have to go to France first. And only if France say that, okay, I'm not interested in this mineral, then they can take it to other people or other partners. You see this kind of deal. What is happening in Africa, in Burkina Faso, is that this guy, Ibrahim Traore, is trying to do exactly to undo all of that. As you can see, the first thing that he did was to kick out of the country the French army and the French ambassador and so forth and so on. And he tried to strike or to create partnership with other powers such as Russia, which French people didn't want. So in nutshell, he wanted to undo the mission assigned to Burkina Faso of only getting their gold being taken by French people and being there to consume what the Americans, the French produce. And this actually is the solution that Africa needs today. And unfortunately, this is what is happening. And the danger is that we have always attempted to do these things alone.